Hello, welcome once again to Urban X-Files. My name is Keith. This takes us somewhere around Liverpool and in the town of Huyton. And this was sometime in the early 90s, and strange rumours began to emerge about a woman who was said to be a real witch. This woman was able to cure people's health conditions, amongst other things, but she was not a witch who practiced black magic. She was a so-called white witch, and she dedicated her life to helping others. So there was a gentleman who was a doctor, and he'd been in his practice for many years, and he heard about this alleged witch by some of his patients. Now, this particular patient who'd gone in to see him had gone for her annual checkup, which is normal, and she had said to the doctor that her conditions, like she had fibromyalgia, amongst other things, and she tried everything possible over the counter and prescription medication. Nothing seemed to help her ailments. So she was telling the doctor that she went to see an alternative practitioner, which the doctor did not like whatsoever. He was adamant that the only medication and health advice should come from a trained medical practitioner, which I agree with. But there are some people who are gifted in that they can perform natural medications. Now, after the doctor snapped at this lady and made it all about himself, and that medicine rules and do not take any notice of these charlatans, well, this really upset the lady. She was like, "This lady is not a charlatan. She gave me some medication, some herbs, and various other things, and made some elixir that I was to drink every week. And every time I've had that medication, my symptoms have subsided. I have less problems, even when I'm even on your medication that you prescribed, doctor. So this alternative medicine that she's given me seems to be working." And the doctor's like, "Well, I think it's mind over matter. I think there's nothing wrong with you, and you're just Munchausen saying there's something wrong with you when there's not. So there's no way some witch would be able to concoct some herbs to make your physical health condition go away." Now, this did not go down well. So she upped and left and thanked him for his many years of crap healthcare, and went on and to see her new friend who was able to help her with her health conditions, because as it stands, there is no cure for fibromyalgia. It's just one of those things. And then as time went on, the doctor had more and more patients who would come to see him, who told him about this lady who was helping his patients, which he really didn't like. He was convinced this woman is a charlatan, so he done his best to prove this woman was phony. So as time went on, the doctor had spoken to his other colleagues in the medical profession and had brought this to their attention. So after the woman left the surgery and never went back to that doctor, that was another patient off his list. This began to become a problem. So there is a gentleman who went to see his doctor as he was suffering he was having really terrible nightmares because he was unable to sleep. So he bought some sleep medication, and this didn't seem to work, because every time he took them, he was slipping into unconsciousness and dreaming of horrific dreams. So we went to see his doctor. Now, when he went to the doctor had prescribed him some antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, different sleep medication, and so on. So the doctor dismissed the guy. He left the surgery, went to cash in his prescription at the chemist, and as he was doing so, he managed to bump into one of the doctor's other patients, and they struck up a conversation, and they had their bitch about the doctor, saying that he didn't care and he just offered drugs and he wasn't interested, and she put the guy onto her friend, who is into alternative medicine. And it just so happened this friend was that white witch. Now, a few months went by when this gentleman had to go and have a medication review. So he went in to see the doctor, and the doctor asked how he was getting on. And the gentleman replied with, "Brilliant." And the doctor was smiling because he was convinced his treatment worked. It was only when the gentleman turned around and said, "Well, doctor, I tried your medication and it just didn't agree with me. I was having these still awful nightmares. I hate being on these tablets. And I was talking to a lovely lady at the chemist, and she said that her friend was able to cure all her health conditions with some herbal medicine. So I got the number from this lady, and I went to see this lady doctor, but she's not a real doctor. And she gave me some herbs to take mixed in a glass, and it's I drink it every week, and that seems to help. It's not the greatest at tasting things, but it's better than taking the medication every night," which the doctor was not happy to hear about. He absolutely went to town on this guy to say that you shouldn't stop medication, you shouldn't be listening to untrained so-called professionals. These people are con artists. And the guy was taken back by the doctor's ferocity in the way he'd just spoken to him, not realizing that the doctor had had many patients leave his surgery down to this so-called woman. Now, the patient had brought the doctor a pillow that he'd been given, which was infused with different herbs, and he wanted to know if this pillow was causing any allergic reactions, as this guy seemed to be a bit of a hypochondriac. And the doctor said that this is terrible, you will have severe reactions, and I suggest you stop using it immediately. Throw that pillow in the bin, go back, cast a prescription for your medication, take your antidepressants, and stop listening to people who don't know what they're talking about. Well, the guy got up, turned his back on the doctor, and left. So the doctor sat there, he was seething, and he wanted to find out who this so-called bloody woman is. So the next patient come in, and the same thing happened. For the various consultations he's had with this lady, she dismissed all his advice and went on from this woman. So the doctor, that's it. He sent the woman out, and he began his quest to dethrone this witch, to make a mockery of her, to show that his Western medication is the way to go, and he should stop with immediate effect producing these stupid herbs. So the quest then began to find the witch. So the doctor, a few weeks later, is having lunch with one of his friends who also has a GP practice few miles away, and he said, you know, I've had this issue with, I've lost half of my patients to some stupid old hag who is going round thinking she can cure people. And the doctor he was having lunch with was really surprised, and he said, well, Dr. Jones, it seems to be that I've had quite a few cases of this woman who's cured some of my patients as well. I'm really intrigued into what she's got to say, as it seems to be doing. And Dr. Jones snapped. He was not happy with the other doctor having an interest in this stupid hag who's going round talking nonsense about health conditions. So Dr. Jones left his friend and went on to his surgery, and he went and started his quest to find this hag. And then it just so happened that the doctor had come down with something he was unable to explain. He couldn't sleep. He self-prescribed medication that wasn't working. He began to experience joint pain. He began to have nightmares, and he put this all down to stress, and he blamed this witch. Now, as time went on, he bumped into this woman, not realizing who she was, and they struck up a conversation. And it was only then did he realize who he was talking with. And he said to her, I have lost many patients with this stupid old hag who's going round saying to take bark off a tree and leaves and stupid medications to cure these ailments my patients are having. And then the woman sat the doctor down and said, Dr. Jones, I believe you're having these nightmares. How do you know? He said, because I have a gift. I have a gift of being able to read people's auras. I can see into a person's deepest, darkest thoughts, and I'm able to help. I know there's a cure for every condition that Mother Nature has blessed us with. There's a cure. There's something that can ease all the discomfort and the pain. And the doctor was at his wit's end with this stress that he didn't want to argue with this white witch. So she suggested to take this little glass bottle with some herbs in it. She said to Dr. Jones, I guarantee if you listen to me, come back and see me in 2 weeks. And if this medication does not work, I will stop everything I'm doing and move out of the city, and you will never hear from me again. Well, this cheered Dr. Jones up, as he thought this was going to be the end of this stupid witch. And it was only until he thought one night when he was there, he'd woke up from a terrible nightmare. He was unable to sleep, and he dreaded the day ahead. He went down and made himself a nice glass of milk and sat there. And there, as he was sat in his kitchen, he seen this bottle that the lady had given him. So he looked at the bottle and was ready to put it in the bin, and something stopped him. As he picked it up, he read the instructions, shook it, mix with warm water, take every night before bed. So what? Give it a try. Boiled the kettle, sprinkled the powder and the contents of the bottle into his cup, stirred it, and had a drink. He felt a bit tired, so he thought, I'm going to go back to bed. Well, he went back to bed and fell fast asleep. He woke up at 7 a.m. the next morning, and he felt like he'd had the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders, even though he'd only been asleep for 5 hours due to being disturbed in the night through nightmares and his pains. He woke up, come down the stairs, and he just realised that he walked down the stairs without having to grab the banister. He was like, this is strange, I've got no pain. It's a coincidence. So off he went, got into his car and went to work. And the same thing happened the following day. He didn't take the medicine because he wanted to see. And that night, he woke up early hours in the morning through these terrible nightmares. He woke up in agony. So the next day, he didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, he got up, went to work, and was absolutely exhausted. So after his surgery had finished, the first thing he done is when he got back home was he made himself some hot water and he put some of the contents of this elixir into the warm glass. He drank and he went to bed early that night. He slept soundly. He had peaceful, calming dreams. He was seeing colours. He woke up that early that morning, 7 o'clock, feeling like he'd slept for a week, fully energised. He didn't need any of his pain medication. He didn't need sleeping tablets from that night on. He decided to continue using this elixir that had been given to him by this lady. 2 weeks had come past, and he went to see this lady who sat there and said, "Welcome, Dr. Jones. May I say you look happy, healthy. You look like you've had the weight of the world lifted from your shoulders." Dr. Jones then sat down, put his hands onto his head and began to cry. For he had sent so many of his patients away and he felt so guilty for trying to get this lady put in prison for being a false doctor that she never professed to be. She never dealt with anything illegal. She didn't take money off people. She was there to help. She took donations if the patient was willing to give. She never asked, but every person that she went to were more than happy to give her a donation because they'd genuinely believed what she'd done was a miracle. So as time went on, they become friends, and the doctor then changed his ways. He apologized. He got in touch with every patient he'd spoke to in ill term. He apologized, and from that day forward, for when patients come into his surgery who were unable to get relief from Western medicine, Dr. Jones was happy to refer his patients to his new friend, who was a white witch. She went about her business and dedicated her life to helping people. The witch's name was Libra. And many years passed, and sadly she passed away. The doctor retired from work, and we now know this lady was a genuine white witch who cared for people. It just shows that there's some good left in this world. I hope you enjoyed today's encounter of a white witch. Stay tuned for part 2.